Have you ever noticed how certain people appear to hold an almost otherworldly grip on the atmosphere around them without uttering a single word? They don't yell. They don't plead. They simply pull back, and all at once, everything shifts. The mood changes. People begin to wonder, to pursue, to feel something. Now picture if you did the same thing. If you stopped reacting instantly to everything, if you chose quiet over the knee-jerk response, retreat over outburst, what do you imagine would happen? That's exactly the point. When you stop making yourself endlessly available, emotionally, physically, mentally, the world around you falls into disorder because people are accustomed to steering you through your reactions, through your impulses, through your predictability. But the moment you choose to pull away, everything changes, and those who believed they had you figured out realize they know nothing at all about you. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." Now consider this. When you become unreachable, who truly grows desperate? Who becomes annoyed? Who tries to poke at you just to draw out some emotion in return? This tells you far more about them than about you. And above all, it shows how much you have been manipulated without even noticing. You keep offering yourself up to keep the peace, to avoid losing people who, deep down, were never truly present for you. And with every forced yes, every instant reply, every emotional reaction, you hand over a fragment of your energy. And by the end of it all, what remains? Exhaustion, frustration, a hollow feeling you can't quite name. But let me tell you why. It's because you make yourself too available to people who don't deserve even a moment of your excellence. This video isn't about turning away from the world. It's about choosing yourself. It's about discovering what Jung referred to as individuation, the process of becoming whole, genuine, complete. And this process starts the moment you realize that silence can carry more weight than 1,000 arguments. That withdrawal, when it stems from awareness rather than avoidance, is an act of strength. So I ask you now, looking straight into your eyes, how much longer will you let yourself be steered by other people's emotions? How much longer will you jerk like a marionette every time someone touches your wound? Perhaps it's time to sever those threads, to step back, to become an enigma. Because once you stop being available, everything transforms. You were raised to always show up, to answer quickly, to accommodate, to say yes even when you meant no. From childhood, you have been trained to believe your worth is measured by how available you make yourself to others. But here's a truth that maybe no one has stated so plainly. This excessive availability isn't a virtue. It's a cage. And as long as you keep believing you must be reachable at all times, whether emotionally or otherwise, you will be exploited, worn down, and cast aside the moment you're no longer of use. Do you know why? Because constant availability makes you appear predictable. And anything predictable turns into a tool. People begin treating you like an emotional panic button. They press it whenever they crave attention, comfort, validation, and then set you back on the shelf. But you fail to notice this because you're caught in the illusion that showing up for everyone will eventually make someone show up for you. But that's not how it works. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we put on to be accepted, adored, acknowledged, and it's precisely this mask that keeps you overly available. You claim you're fine when you are suffocating. You reply to messages right away even when you're drained. You over-explain, rationalize, defend yourself as though you owe the world something. But the truth is, that the more you place yourself at the heart of someone else's spotlight, the more you vanish from your own. Constant availability is a subtle form of self-neglect. It's a masked attempt to chase approval, dodge rejection, control how others perceive you. But this control carries a cost, and that cost is your peace. It's your life force being handed out as though it were limitless, when in truth, it's finite, deeply finite. People who want you around all the time don't actually want you. They want what you offer: validation, company, distraction, emotional relief. But when you shift, when you draw a line, when you refuse to react, those same people grow irritated, blame you, call you strange. It's not because you changed. It's because you stopped being useful to them. And here's the harshest truth. The more available you are, the less others value you. Because what is in constant supply becomes emotional clutter. No one respects what they didn't have to work for. No one treasures what's always within reach. So pause and reflect. Who genuinely deserves your time? Who deserves your attention, your presence, your ear? Or better still, who deserves your absence? But before we answer that, we must first grasp one crucial thing. Why do we overreact so often? Why do we cave so easily? What drives this nearly automatic urgito answer, to defend, to appease? The answer lies in what Carl Jung called psychic energy, and that's the subject of our next segment. Because your energy is everything you possess, and if you don't learn to safeguard it, someone else will turn it against you. If this content resonates with you, hit the subscribe button and follow the channel. Thank you for your support. Carl Jung didn't view the human psyche as an automatic machine that reacts to stimuli without cost. To him, our mind functions like an energy system, and every thought, feeling, and action drains a portion of that energy. The real question is, are you deciding where your energy flows, or are you letting the world make that choice for you? Every time you react on impulse, you're squandering psychic energy. When you defend yourself against criticism that never deserved your attention, when you answer a provocation solely to prove you're right, when you get pulled into pointless arguments, when you strive to please those who don't value you, you're pouring your inner strength into things that give nothing back. And Jung made it clear that what you resist persists. The more you react, the tighter you tie yourself down. Those who feel emotionally depleted aren't weak. They're simply misaligned. And do you know what happens to someone who lives worn out? They become fragile. And once you're fragile, you become an easy target. Manipulative, opportunistic. Emotionally hungry people can sense this. Thinatus, that you don't know how to protect your energy, that you react to everything, that you're constantly trying to fix the world, and they exploit it. Jung said that a healthy psyche knows how to hold its energy within the system. This means learning to say no without shame, learning to stay quiet without feeling weak, learning to observe before acting. Because real power isn't found in reacting. It's found in choosing when and how to act. And this only becomes possible once you know yourself well enough to recognize your own impulses. How many nights have you lost sleep over an unfinished conversation? How many hours have you spent replaying what you should have said, or trying to figure out why someone treated you badly? That is energy being drained with nothing gained in return. You keep certain ghosts alive that should have been laid to rest long ago, and you feed patterns that only continue because you keep responding. Psychic energy is like a force field. When guarded well, it creates presence. You walk into a room and earn respect without saying a single word. But when handled poorly, you turn invisible, reactive, fragile, and the world shows no mercy to those who fold easily. So start paying attention to your own triggers. What sets you off automatically? What throws you off center? These are the precise points where your energy leaks out, and this is where the work must happen. Not to turn cold or indifferent, but to become selective, to be master over yourself. And here comes one of Jung's greatest insights. When you preserve your energy, you dismantle the projections others place onto you. And that stirs quite a bit of unease, because now we step into darker terrain, that of quiet manipulation. In the next segment, we'll examine how opportunistic people feed off your energy and why your unavailability completely dismantles these dynamics. Prepare to look directly at those who have always drained you without your even realizing it. You believe you're in charge. You think your reactions are deliberate choices. But the truth is bleaker. Most of your emotional responses are conditioned, and those who understand this exploit you effortlessly. Opportunistic people don't need to raise their voice, make threats, or force anything. They simply press the buttons you've left exposed, and you react every single time. Carl Jung called this projection, the psychological mechanism by which people cast onto others what they cannot recognize within themselves. But there's another side to this pattern that few notice. While others project onto you, you also turn into the container for these images. And the more emotionally available you are, the more you become a blank slate for these projections. You know that friend who only reaches out during a crisis, that partner who always needs you to swoop in and fix things, that person who compliments you but only while you remain useful to them. None of this is coincidental. They aren't connecting with you. They're connecting with the idea of you, with the role you've agreed to fill. And why do you agree? Because you fear disappointing others, fear not being loved, fear being abandoned. The most powerful manipulation doesn't come through shouting. It comes through the quiet weight of guilt. When you feel indebted to someone, when you believe you must be available, must help, must understand, even when it's tearing you apart inside. And here is the core of it. The manipulator doesn't need to control you. They just need you to keep reacting the same way. But once you stop reacting, the game collapses. Once you start saying no, answering with silence, pulling back instead of explaining yourself, the projections start to fall apart. The mask they've placed on you slips off, and this unsettles people because they no longer recognize who you are. And worse, they're now forced to face themselves. And not everyone is ready for that. Your unavailability becomes a threat because it forces others to confront their own emptiness. The quiet you offer exposes the inner noise they'd rather not hear. And then comes the backlash, the criticism, the emotional theatrics. Not because you're wrong, but because you stopped acting as a convenient mirror. Jung said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you withdraw, when you stop feeding the pattern, the other person's shadow begins to surface. And this is unbearable for those who have always used you as an escape hatch. But what about you? Are you prepared to handle the discomfort of being misunderstood, rejected, or even attacked for protecting yourself? Are you prepared to sit with the silence that follows the break? Because it is precisely within that silence that a new form of power takes shape. And that's exactly what we'll explore now. In the next part, you'll come to understand why silence can be the most crushing weapon of the human psyche, and how it completely reshapes the dynamic between you and the world. The modern world is loud. Everyone wants to be heard, wants to respond instantly, wants to win meaningless arguments and prove their point, even at the cost of their own peace. But there's a power few recognize and even fewer master. The power of silence. Not the silence born of passivity or fear, but a deliberate, strategic, brutally clear silence. The kind of silence that isn't absence, but heightened presence. Jung viewed silence not as emptiness, but as fertile ground for inner change. When you stop reacting, you begin to observe, and through observation you start seeing patterns that once went unnoticed. Emotional repetitions, manipulation tactics, cycles of self-sabotage. Silence opens the door to clarity, and clarity is dangerous for those who thrive on controlling you. Have you noticed how some people grow anxious when you don't reply, when you don't justify yourself, when you simply vanish? It isn't because they miss you. It's because your silence strips away their grip on the narrative. While you're talking, you're still part of the game. But once you go quiet, you raise away the rules. And that throws off anyone who relies on your reactions. True silence isn't the lack of a voice. It's command over one's own energy. It's the refusal to be pulled down by someone else's emotions. It's the deliberate decision not to enter battles that aren't worth the toll they take on you. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, demands this distance because it's only in silence that you can hear yourself without the world's noise interfering. But make no mistake, silence comes at a cost. It will push away people who only valued you for the part you played. It will make you unreadable to those who only viewed you through their own projections. It will make you seem cold, distant, arrogant. But all of this is simply a reaction from those who never wanted to engage with your depth, only with your usefulness. And here's the difficult truth. The more you grow, the more selective you become with your words, because you come to understand that every sentence is an energetic investment, and not everyone deserves access to your truth. Sometimes silence isn't retreat, it's sovereignty. It's the language of someone who no longer feels the need to prove anything to anybody. Silence is uncomfortable because it forces others to sit with their own thoughts, with their own internal noise. And that discomfort reveals far more about them than any argument of yours ever could. You don't need to explain your absence. It speaks for itself. And those who feel threatened by it show just how much they relied on your imbalance to sustain their own sense of control. But the most powerful silence isn't the oni that unsettles others. It's the silence that rebuilds you from within. The silence that reconnects you to something beyond outside approval. It is within this inner space, free from others' demands, that you begin reclaiming your vital energy and reconnecting with your essence. And that is exactly what we'll cover in the next part. Because it isn't enough to simply block out external noise. You need to relearn how to use your energy deliberately, to choose where it goes, where it stays, and above all, where it should never be wasted. It's time to learn how to be discerning with your own soul. If you're in the process of reclaiming your energy and setting boundaries, you'll find real value in my book, Beyond the Shadow. It unpacks Jung's most significant ideas and gives you tools to protect your energy, set boundaries, and reconnect with your true self. The link is in the pinned comment. There's no point understanding all of this intellectually if in practice you still say yes when you mean no, still respond to messages that irritate you, still take part in empty conversations, and still cling to relationships that only survive out of habit. Awareness without action is nothing more than another form of self-deception. Genuine transformation begins the moment you firmly commit to becoming selective. And this demands emotional discipline. Deliberate unavailability isn't about being cold, arrogant, or indifferent. It's about no longer being eachable to everyone at every moment for every reason. It's about reclaiming your own energy, your own time, your own peace. And it starts with small steps. Not responding right away, pausing before reacting, walking away from an argument before getting dragged into chaos, powering down your phone without guilt, saying not today, saying I'm not interested, saying I won't be part of this. There's the most crucial part. You don't need to justify your absence. You don't need to account for your silence. You owe nothing to anyone except yourself. And for many people this is unforgivable, because when you refuse to explain yourself, you strip away their ability to keep you trapped in an emotional storyline where you're always the helpful, understanding, accessible one. Carl Jung understood that every process of individuation passes through isolation, but not a depressive isolation, a sacred one, a season of inner retreat where you relearn to listen to your own voice without the world's interference, where you reconstruct your identity, not based on others' perceptions, but from your own center. Want a good gauge of your growth? Watch who starts pulling away from you as you become more guarded. Watch who tries to provoke you once you stop reacting. Watch who accuses you of changing when you finally start protecting yourself. These aren't signs that you're wrong. They're proof that you have started freeing yourself. Being unavailable feels uncomfortable at first. You'll feel guilty. You'll think you're being selfish. You'll be told you're being too harsh. But this is part of the unlearning process. You've spent your whole life conditioned to put yourself last. It's natural that change stirs discomfort, not just in you, but in everyone who benefited from the old version of you. Deliberate unavailability is the bedrock of self-determination. When you say no to the world, you're saying yes to yourself. When you step away from a toxic environment, you're reaffirming that your peace matters more than any false connection. And when you stop justifying yourself, you begin to earn respect, even if it's only from a few. But not everyone is ready for this kind of presence, because your emotional absence will expose wounds they'd rather avoid. It will reveal how much they depended on your emotional turmoil to feel in control. And it's at this moment that the break happens. And with that break comes the pain, the loneliness, the distance, the sense that you're losing something, when in truth you're simply setting yourself free. But what comes after that? What follows the distance? What emerges from the silence? In the final part, we'll discuss this, the rebirth that only happens when you find the courage to be misunderstood, to be alone, and to become whole on your own. It's time to understand why the solitude of the strong is the road to true freedom. When you stop being available to everyone, something deep begins to unfold. First comes the silence, an uneasy silence that seems to echo inside you. You question whether you did the right thing, whether you're being too harsh, whether you're losing people who cared for you. But little by little, this silence shifts. It starts to purify, to settle, to mend, and then comes solitude, but not the solitude of emptiness. It's the solitude of total presence, your own. The solitude of the strong, the solitude of someone who no longer betrays themselves to keep others close. And in that space where confusion once lived, clarity moves in. Where anxiety once lived, peace moves in. Where neediness once lived, a new kind of strength moves in. The strength of being whole within yourself. Carl Jung said that the process of individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires you to step away from the collective, to detach from the mask, to walk alone for a time. And that is exactly what you're doing when you decide to become unavailable. You aren't running from the world. You're returning to yourself. This is the point where you stop being a reactor and become a creator. You stop being molded by circumstances and begin shaping your reality from the inside out. The people who feel unsettled by your absence are revealing that they never truly wanted you. They wanted the role you played. And now that you no longer fit it, they don't know what to do with you. And that is freeing. You will lose people, but you will find yourself. You will drift from certain places, but you will reconnect with your essence. You will be misunderstood, but eventually you will begin to be respected. Because once you're no longer available for anything, you become valuable, rare, unforgettable. And make no mistake, this is a rebirth, a fresh start, the beginning of a life where you're no longer available for emotional scraps, for mind games, for emptiness disguised as affection. Now you only accept what aligns with your peace, with your truth, with your wholeness. And if you've made it this far, it's because part of you is already prepared for this new path. Part of you has already grasped that being loved means nothing if it requires abandoning yourself. And that genuine self-love begins the moment you choose yourself, even if it costs you some time alone. Now tell me in the comments, are you ready to be misunderstood, rejected, or even resented in the mom, your inner freedom? Are you willing to pay the price of being yourself? If this message reached you, if it struck a chord, write in the comments, I choose my peace. Let's see how many here are ready for this shift. And don't forget, keep watching the next video. It matters far more than you realize. See you there.